Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
On today's show, Thursday, March 21st, 2019, going to do the Congressman Tom Reed weekly press call. And Congressman Tom Reed took questions from reporters all across the district. And his opening statements focus on the Problem Solvers Caucus and how they're talking about the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. Now, some of the questions in the call went on a half hour. We edited it down a little bit, edited out the questions about the Jamestown Airport, and focused on the questions that were more specific to this part of the district, as well as the district in general. Reed starts off talking about how he's been traveling a lot lately. He was in Hornell yesterday.
Traveling the district this week and out there talking to people, listening to people, and hearing what's on their mind. One thing I wanted to highlight this week is I've heard from multiple people across the district in regards to the farmers that are being impacted day to day in regards to farm prices and just accessing markets across the world. And I wanted to send the public message that we hear them, and that last week I spent an hour, a little bit over an hour, with a bipartisan group of members in the Problem Solvers Caucus with our trade ambassador, Bob Lighthizer, having a conversation in particular about Mexico and Canada, the NAFTA 2.0, if you would, and the need for us to get that passed. And so I join with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that are calling for the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement update to be brought to the floor and to be voted upon. It is time to go on record as to where we stand in regards to approving that agreement. And I will tell you, I think we're in a position, and I asked Nancy Pelosi, bring this agreement to the floor so that we can get Mexico and Canada to the position where we know they need to be, that they need to be operating under a revised, modernized trading agreement that allows our manufacturers, that allow our farmers access into their marketplace as well in a fair and level exchange. And I will tell you, this agreement that's been negotiated, I think is ready to go. And on top of that, we are also sending a letter on behalf of our farmers to the folks in the Agricultural Department, the Agricultural Secretary, that I hear loud and clear that the new margin protection program that is in place for our dairy farmers under the new Farm Bill needs to be implemented much sooner than the July target date, that we need to get this revised insurance program for our dairy farmers in place so that they can take advantage of it, and that the margins that they're enduring have to come with some sort of relief from this revised program that's going to stand with our small and mid-sized dairy farmers in particular to get them the resources and the insurance returns so that they can survive and continue to operate their dairy farms going forward. So to me, this is a 1-2 course of action. Get the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement to the floor of the House and approved, and then at the same time, get this new margin protection program up and running sooner than July as initially targeted by the Ag Department. And so hopefully we start getting this relief to our farmers in particular, immediately delivered to them as we've heard their concern as we travel across the district and just talking to them over the last few months. So that being said, we open it up to questions.
All right, Jason Samples.
Just getting back to what you opened up with, talking about trying to get this trade deal on the floor for a vote. Do you have a timeline or an idea of when exactly it would make it to the floor? And I hear sometimes this is called NAFTA 2.0. I think you even called it that. Is it really just NAFTA with a different package around it, or are there really striking differences between what NAFTA was and what this could be?
Well, first of all, the timeline onto the floor is obviously ultimately up to Nancy Pelosi and the Speaker's office. She is the one who will make a determination when this will be voted on. My hope is the message of we need to do this sooner rather than later is the message she hears. She hears and follows from us as members our demand to have a vote on this updated agreement. There are some things that we can do as we go through that vote to maybe address some of the concerns that are still outstanding, but we do not need to reopen and renegotiate the agreement. We can deal with those, in my opinion, through the legislation that would approve it. That being said, this is not the NAFTA 1.0. When NAFTA was originally negotiated, Jason, we are talking a world where the internet didn't exist. Digital commerce was something of a nominal nature. And clearly, as we've developed over the last 25 years, an economy that needed an update, U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement, we see the fruits of that in this agreement itself. And then on top of that, when you have access to Mexico and Canada for our dairy farmers in particular, where historically, under the old agreement, our dairy farmers were shut out, for example, out of the Canadian market. Now, we're accessing that market with new milk products, dairy products, ultra-filtered milk, Class 6, 7 milk being opened up to them. So there is a huge improvement in this agreement that cannot be lost and try to label it as the old NAFTA of yesterday. Clearly is not that. It is allowing us to compete on a fair and level playing field.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Jack from the Dunkirk Observer.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Doing well, Zach. How you doing?
I'm great. Great to see Allison at the Boys and Girls Club annual dinner on Friday, and appreciate all your support on that.
That is good.
My question is really on the funding that the county and cities received for the NRG future. Is the federal government able to provide any assistance, or what's your thoughts on what that property could ultimately be?
Well, we were able to work with our partners to get the feasibility study in place for NRG and to look at all options as to, what can that facility be repurposed for. And I don't want to limit that discussion. I want to let the creativity of the professionals as well as the community step forward and see what is a viable use for that facility going forward. Now, obviously, I would love to see the repowering of that facility. We're utilizing technology and energy sources of tomorrow right there. That is something to me that makes a lot of sense. And you saw with the original application that there was a possibility to do just that. But maybe there's something else out there. And so we'll continue to listen to all input. But we were able to, help to secure those resources to get at least that study moving forward so that we don't have an open-ended lack of use of that facility there in perpetuity. So it's about being creative. It's about uniting the forces, local, state, and federal, and coming up with a community-led effort that is going to revitalize that facility in a positive way.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
All right, Lucas Day.
Hi, Congressman. How are you?
Doing well, Lucas. How you doing?
Good, Congressman. Hey, just wanted to touch base real quick. This afternoon we received a release regarding you joining up with Google for some tech training at Marcus Whitman in Rushville on Thursday. Can you talk about that a little bit to preview that for us? Or
Yeah. So a little precursor to our visit there at Marcus Whitman. Obviously we're always trying to get out across the district, and one of the things I enjoy most is highlighting our local schools when it comes to high school and K through 12 programs that are there, and to bring a partner like Google into the mix so that they're providing those 21st century type of innovative business models and applications that Google brings to the table, right to a rural community such as Marcus Whitman School District. And I'll tell you, we want to go firsthand to see that partnership, to be a voice for that type of partnership to other school districts across the district, and say that if anyone's interested in this, please reach out to us. We can make these connections not only there at Marcus Whitman, but elsewhere, so that our young men and women that are finishing up high school are in a position to have access and awareness as well as skills potentially developed in that whole, shared economy, cloud-based economy that Google's bringing to the table.
is this the first time that you've teamed up with Google for an event like this?
It is. So I'm excited to to see it firsthand. We've talked with Google, obviously, over the years, and have traveled to their headquarters on the West Coast, and now to see it deployed in the district, that partnership at a school such as Marcus Whitman is exciting. That's one of my roles I see, is making these connections, being a convener, bringing some of this greatest and best technology to our area, and those leaders across the nation right here into our backyard. You never know what it's going to spawn in regards to that innovative thought of tomorrow being ignited right here in our backyard.
Congressman, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas.
Jason Jordan.
Hey there, Congressman.
Hey, Jason.
All right. In addition to increased access for dairy farmers, do you foresee any other specific examples of benefits from a trade agreement with Mexico and Canada?
Yeah, so, if you look at the rules of origin for our auto industry, for example, and how under the old situation and the old potentially negotiated TPP, you could theoretically have a North America vehicle under that Canada-Mexico relationship that had no car parts, no supply chains on American soil. Now with the new rules of origin provisions, you're going to see a thriving supply chain and auto parts as well as auto manufacturing rule of origin requirement that will put that local content right on America's soil, in my opinion. I see not only for dairy but also our specialty crops having access to the Mexico and Canadian marketplace based on scientific standards as opposed to artificial standards that are more designed from a protective trade perspective as opposed to science-based sanitary standards that the new agreement represents. And then I'll put also another thing on people's horizon that we pay very close attention to. And it's not so much of an issue with Mexico-Canada, but, for example, it's the currency manipulation provisions and other provisions where we've been able to negotiate with Mexico and Canada what I will call the gold standard language for some of these trade issues that have really been deployed in an unfair manner with partners such as China, Japan, other areas. And we're going to use this negotiated gold standard language from the Mexico-Canada situation and build off of that as we take on some of these unfair trade practices when it comes to intellectual property, currency manipulation, and elsewhere that will help protect and allow for U.S. interests to be able to compete on a fair and level playing field.
Okay, and we also got your press release on trying to get the 9/11 victim compensation fund funded through the consensus calendar rule. Can you tell me where are cuts to that fund coming from? Is it legislative expiration or a result of the upcoming budget?
No, so essentially the real risk to the 9/11 First Responders Fund, the bill that you referenced, comes from its expiration and the fact that it hasn't been renewed. And so first, the Problem Solvers Caucus came together as a group and by way of action supported the passage of the 9/11 bill for our first responders, and then also made a conscious decision as a group to utilize that new rule reform of 290 co-sponsorships that forces that bill to come to the floor of the House once we get to the 290th co-sponsorship level. And so immediately we brought 40 new members to the co-sponsorship with the Problem Solvers Caucus action, and that is a giant leap closer to the 290 co-sponsorships we need to get to the floor. And so this is a combination of recognizing the cultural shift and rule reforms that we were able to secure through the Problem Solvers Caucus in the last go-around. And I couldn't think of a better piece of legislation to show that bipartisan consensus type of effort than standing with our 9/11 first responders.
So what is it that's holding it up? Who's the bad guy? Why can't this get a normal floor vote?
Well, there's obviously a lot of folks that are concerned about open-ended funding levels. They're concerned about the who accesses the 9/11 fund. But I think the legislation and especially the provisions that are looking to be reauthorized address all of those concerns. And so it is also not only a substantive issue that we often have to overcome with a bill like the 9/11 First responders. It's just a matter of prioritizing from the membership, telling leadership, we want this to come to the floor, as opposed to leadership saying, well, we're kind of busy this week, we're kind of busy next week, maybe we'll get to it next month. This is allowing members to be members and drive the agenda through this consensus calendar so that we don't have to maybe wait on priorities that others think are more important.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And on today's Newsmaker show, it's this week's press call with Corning Republican Congressman Tom Reed. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, the question from AM 1480 WLEA. Stay with us.
It's a spring sales event at Maple City Dodge with leases that smell like roses. A 2019 Jeep Cherokee Latitude Plus 4x4 as low as $199 a month for 42 months with $4,199 due at signing. 2019 Dodge Durango SXT Plus for as low as $279 a month for 36 months with $4,119 due at signing. Details and restrictions apply. See website or dealer for more. Maple City Dodge Hornell.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carolyn, who says, what, a little rainy today?
A little rainy, Brian. Two storm systems are going to come together as one over New Jersey late today, but they will be merging together, kind of coalescing over New Jersey. That system's going to track up across southeastern New England tomorrow morning and then become a very powerful low-pressure system over the weekend in the Canadian Maritime provinces. That, in turn, is going to lead to some cooler and windy weather for us as we start the weekend off. Today, lots of clouds and mild. We should be close to 50. We'll see a couple of showers before the day is done. Sunrise this morning was at 7:10. Sunset tonight at 7:24. Cloudy with scattered rain and snow showers tonight as we start to turn colder overnight with 35 to 40. Tomorrow, cloudy, breezy, chance of rain or wet snow showers during the day. It'll be 40 to 45. Tomorrow night, the snow showers will end, breezy 20 to 25. Sunshine develops on Saturday, breezy and cold, highs 35 to 40. Sunday looks like the pick day out of the weekend because we'll have sunshine and it's milder. Temperatures on Sunday up close to 50, Brian.
Back on Newsmaker, I'm Brian O'Neill. It's the Congressman Tom Reed weekly press call. The next question came from us.
Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
Good, and yourself?
Good.
Was wondering if you wanted to make any comments about the Congressman Devin Nunes lawsuit seeking $250 million in damages and an extra $350,000 in punitive damages against Twitter.
Yeah, no, I read that, and I know Devin, so I don't know any details. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. He serves on the Ways and Means Committee with me, and, I've known Devin over the years. So I look forward when I return next week to talk to him personally about this. But, this is a concern that's been raised in the social media world, is where are the lines of that need to be drawn in order to make sure that things are being accurately depicted in the social media world. Where does defamation for public figures come into the mix? Where do the alienation of people's interest or likenesses or names? I believe there's some allegations in this lawsuit in regards to that, the misappropriation of his identity and things like that. So it's raising some serious questions that we know are out there in the new social media world. But I'm going to defer to Devin as to the nuts and bolts of it because I really don't know the details of what the claims are and where Devin's coming from in regards to bringing this lawsuit.
You take a lot of critical comments on your pages, your social media pages, but I'm guessing that's not the direction you'd go in yourself as far as lawsuits go?
Yeah, no, I do believe, and obviously each member makes that own determination. I do believe, let folks have access to that social media. We allow folks to express their opinions, and, a lot of times what we see on social media today is things that I would never say in public, as my mom would come up and teach me a lesson real quick from the grave. That's not the way to speak in public. But we get it. We take that criticism. We take those comments as what they represent, and that's people expressing their opinion. And I believe, as we've demonstrated, we have a tolerance and an openness to it that's maybe a little bit broader than other members do.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
And the next question came from WDOE in Chautauqua County. It's Greg Larson.
Well, Greg, how you doing?
Doing good. Wanted to get your thoughts about Kirsten Gillibrand's announcement that she'll be making a run for the White House in 2020.
Well, obviously, this is democracy, as you see on the Democratic side. Not only Kirsten Gillibrand, our home senator, making a run for the White House, but numerous folks on the Democratic side going through that process. And, we'll let the Democratic politics take its own course, and we appreciate anybody who runs for public office, and so I wish her well as our home senator, but I'm really going to defer to the Democratic side of the aisle in regards to the political commentary as to her campaign.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Anna from Tap Into Greater Olean.
Hi, this is Anastasia Catone with Tap Into Greater Olean.
Okay, go right ahead.
So you have a number of colleges in your district. In light of the college admissions scandal, what message do you have for all the students who worked hard to get into college on their own merit?
Well, to take a moment and make sure that they recognize and pat themselves on the back in regards to they did it right. They followed the rules, and they were able to succeed by entering the college of their choice based on their own merit. And then, and what I would also say to them is, I hear the frustration and the lack of transparency in higher education. And my hope is that maybe we could use this as kind of the tip of the iceberg to bring sunshine to our higher educational world, and not only get sunshine into our admission process, but also sunshine into our cost issue, and start asking the question: where are these donations going? Where is the cost? Drivers coming from, and how are we going to hold colleges and universities accountable to get costs going down and making school affordable for average working families across the nation?
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Vaughn Golden.
Hey, Tom. I wanted to ask you about debt ceiling. I was looking at some projections that possibly sometime this summer or later in the year, Congress could be faced with raising the debt ceiling again. So I want to get your opinion on, are you prepared for that kind of vote? And if so, are we looking at sequestration caps, spending caps in that deal as well? And your thoughts on that part as well?
Well, this is exactly one of the messages that the Treasury Secretary had in front of the Ways and Means Committee last week before we left Washington, is that, we have this debt ceiling issue coming to a head. We've hit the date. Now we're into the extraordinary measures that pushes this off, as you point out, to somewhere around the summer. Seems to be an accurate assessment. July, August seems to be the assessment that generally is accepted as to how far we can push the debt ceiling out. And I'm very concerned about it in the sense of how are we going to get 218 votes in the U.S. House of Representatives in order to put a marker in front of the Senate to get the debt ceiling addressed. A lot of folks are contemplating tying this to the budget deal that would relieve the debt ceiling as well as get the spending in line to an agreement level. And maybe that's the right thing to do, because as you hear often with the debt ceiling, this is about spending or paying for money that's already spent. So why don't you have a conversation about where we're spending the money on the discretionary side, and tie it to the necessary debt to pay for the future round of spending coming from that budget deal going forward. So that is probably a realistic combination that I see coming together, but time will tell, and this is going to be a test, I think, of the other side of the aisle of being able to get 218 votes together when they're having a tremendous amount of pressure from within their party, in my humble opinion, observing it from the outside, of getting that 218 consensus type of position.
Mm-hmm. And spending caps, do you think they're an effective way to reel in spending here? And you have parts of the budget like OCO that haven't really been subject to the caps here.
Well, no, and then that's just it. I mean, obviously, as I demonstrated with my last vote on the budget deal, where I was a no. And a lot of people are, the driver of the budget, the spending issue, and this is the debt crisis on the spending side, is the non-discretionary funding, the mandatory government, if you would, the entitlements portion of it. But I am of the school of thought that we should be looking at every penny of the entire $4.2 trillion that we spend. And just because it's only as they will say in D.C., it is only $1.2 trillion out of the 4.2 that somehow that justifies not looking at that spending. I disagree with that. I believe, every penny needs to be looked at, and the more that we can get our fiscal house in order sooner rather than later, we should be doing. And that means every line of the budget needs to be scrubbed each and every year.
All right. Thank you much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that wraps it up.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you all next week. Thanks. Take care now.
So that's that for the Newsmaker Show with Corning Republican Congressman Tom Reed and his press call from this week. I'm Brian O'Neill. Stay with us for the Brian Kilmeade Show here on AM 1480 WLEA.